to Short Film Saturdays. We have another Caribbean Short Film Saturday for you guys today. We're really excited. We're in 2 new Caribbean countries that we haven't been in a while, well, specifically Barbados. I think this is our first filmmaker and film screening from Barbados. And we have a repeat screening from one of our early Short Film Saturday directors, who you'll see in a second, from Jamaica. So we'll introduce everyone soon. And yeah, so let's get going. For you guys who don't know about 𝗖𝗟𝗓𝗦𝗧𝗧𝗘𝗡𝗦 Short Film Saturdays and who aren't familiar with 𝗖𝗟𝗓𝗦𝗧𝗧𝗘 yet, I'm sure this will be your first one. Our mission is to achieve a more equitable and representative global film and television landscape. We're a media company based in Brooklyn, New York, and our focus is on the global diasporas of Asia, Africa, Latin America, the Caribbean, and the Middle East, with goals of elevating untold stories from these cultures, forming closer transcultural community bonds, and providing opportunities and resources for our filmmaker community to produce premium world-class content. We specialize in film, TV, and editorial media production. And so we have a podcast, we have a newsletter, and then we have this event series as well. And we aim to lift up these underrepresented voices from these regions that are not often seen or authentically represented or well understood in the global mainstream media. And we feel like there's no better way to do that than short films. Short Film Saturday came about through our podcast, 𝗖𝗟𝗓𝗦𝗧𝗧𝗘𝗡𝗦 Spotlight, where we would profile industry leaders and trailblazers from all over the global South diasporas. And they would talk about some of their early work, likely short films. And then listeners will say, well, where can we watch these films? And so that's how Short Film Saturday was born. We were like, well, let's start to show these films, right? From emerging filmmakers and experienced filmmakers. So you guys get to see their purest form of artistic expression. And oftentimes this is not executed with a lot of production budget, right? So you really see the raw talent, you see the resourcefulness of the filmmakers within the boundaries of smaller production budgets. Now, since launching Short Film Saturdays in the late summer of 2021, we featured 43 films from 34 filmmakers in 20 countries to date. So we're really excited that, you know, we still keep getting a lot of submissions and the numbers keep going up, which is awesome. All right, so let me get into introducing our 2 filmmakers. Really excited. It always feels good when you just have an all Caribbean filmmaker team because there's a vibe, you know? All right, so Rebecca, who we call Bex. So you could take your pick, what you like to call her, but Rebecca Williams is a Jamaican filmmaker, photographer, writer, and painter based in Kingston, Jamaica. She recently graduated Magna Cum Laude from the Savannah College of Art and Design, SCAD, with a B.F.A in film and TV production. She's pursuing an M.F.A now in creative writing at the University of Oxford. Her work is firmly rooted in her Jamaican heritage as she explores the complexities of youth, culture, and the global human experience. And you'll definitely see that in her film today. Beck's work can be found in Blank Magazine, Milk.xyz, Format Magazine, Nike, Pitchfork, Fader, Apple Music, Tidal, and Spotify. Welcome, Bex.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to talk about this film with you guys and to talk about the other film.
Yeah, and it's good to have you again. And so now we have our new, our first timer for Short Film Saturdays. Hopefully it will be his first time. Clish Gittens is a visual anthropologist who seeks to capture the unique lived experience and stories of Caribbean people. Through his lens, he is able to share the stories of Caribbean livelihoods, culture, habitats, and environmental changes to bring awareness to Caribbean sustainability from an island perspective. In the realm of cinema, Clish is a multiple award-winning Caribbean filmmaker who has won regional and international awards for his advocacy through eco-documentaries. Through art, his purpose is to tell Caribbean stories through Caribbean lenses. So welcome, Clish.
Hi, thanks for having me.
All right, so the way this is gonna go for the first timers, we are going to have both filmmakers just briefly introduce their films to you. Then we would screen both films, and then we will come back for the Q&A. The Q&A is the best part. So stick around once you watch the film so you could hear the inspiration and the story behind these two filmmakers and how they came about to make these films. We'll be showing Out of Many and Seaside Stables, and I'll have Rebecca and Clish introduce their films now. Rebecca, you go first.
Okay, so essentially Out of Many is a story about ignorance and privilege, but through the lens of Jamaican youth. And this was my first film out of college. I hope people enjoy it and take something from it.
Clish?
So Seaside Stables is a short documentary that explores the culture behind horse racing in the island of Barbados and the unique culture where horses actually go swimming in the ocean. And it's relatively unique where people can actually get up early mornings around 5 a.m. and you can go swimming with the horses. So when we use the term sea horses in Barbados, it actually has like a totally different connotation. But it's a documentary that explores a bit of horse racing culture and also looks at what happens and why they take the horses to the sea and how it all ties back within horse racing culture.
Awesome, awesome. All right, let's go. So guys, enjoy these films. We look forward to the lively Q&As, which are always just as entertaining as the films themselves. So enjoy the show and we'll be back. See you back for the Q&A. All right, we're back. And I hope everybody really enjoyed what you just saw. We could tell that you did. So we're really excited to get into a really good conversation with the filmmakers. One of the things that I think is always really great to see is the landscape of the Caribbean, and it just kind of takes you back to, you know, life there and how unique it is, you know. But for those of you who just joined, who missed our intros, we're here for Short Film Saturday. You just watched Out of Many and Seaside Stables. Out of Many was done by Rebecca Williams, a Jamaican filmmaker who's here with us today for the second Short Film Saturdays that she's done. And Clish Gittens did Seaside Stables from Barbados. And yeah, it's just great to kind of see the landscape of the islands. It's just awesome. So I'm excited to jump into this with you guys. So we're going to go in order of the screenings, right? So starting with BecX for Out of Many. So first question is around the whole notion of, you know, seeing a dead body for the first time. So the main character, her bubble is kind of burst by that experience. And for many people, you know, you could relate to it, but how you feel about it really depends on your cultural and religious upbringing. So speak to that a little bit, you know, how is death viewed and handled? Not just where you're from in Jamaica, but contextualize that in terms of the character and the film and her reaction to it.
Yeah, so I feel like with Asha, you know, she's a very young girl. She's about like 16, 17, thereabout. So she's really in like a pivotal moment, like in her womanhood and in just like her life. I think when we think about death in Jamaica, like there are so many varying views. And I think we get that from GT when he says, you know, people die every day. Because, you know, for a lot of people, violence is very near. People know it very intimately. And people have had to go through loss and grief a lot. But we see that Asha has not had to confront these issues before because she is so removed and intentionally so. You know, she has been purposely brought up so that she is shielded from those sort of things. So I really just wanted to sort of have the event and then the two perspectives sort of, you know, which aren't the only perspectives, but they are very opposing perspectives on the same event. So I think that is just where I wanted to have the jumping off point for the whole short film.
Okay. And that was really well done. And I think one of the things that I think was the most curious question for me was, what made you want to tackle this experience in the film? Is it mirroring an experience that you've had as a kid? Are you Asha? Did you know an Asha?
Oh God. Oh God. No, I mean, I'm definitely not Asha. I mean, yeah, you know, she's, bless her heart. But no, I've definitely, something did happen to me. Like I did see a dead body, but you know, I didn't have that much of a visceral reaction. Like it didn't throw me for a spin, because, you know, it wasn't the first time, but it was very particular because I saw this body on Norbrook Road, which in Jamaica is like a very residential area. It's like not a place you'd expect to see such a vulnerable and like jarring, I guess, you know, image. You know, you wouldn't really expect it there. So I think that is why it really stuck in my mind. I said, wow, this is, you know, a lot of contrast happening here. And then I kind of looked at it like, you know, how would a person who is younger than me, has like a different background than me, like how would they approach this? Like how would this really throw someone into a lot of like deep introspection? And that's kind of where I do think like Asha is like a combination of people I know, you know what I mean, like people I've met or been acquainted with or heard a story about. I think she is a very specific character in the Jamaican society. And I think, you know, when you see a girl like her, you really recognize it. And you know, like we did things like, even with her Exodus backpack. Oh my God, no hate to Exodus, but even with her Exodus backpack, you know, that's a very specific cultural detail that tells you a lot about like her socioeconomic background, who her friends are, like what she's been able to do, what privilege has afforded her. So yeah, she's definitely like a collage of a lot of things. Yeah.
And I think like, you know, you could definitely relate to that. I'm sure, you know, from many cultures, you could relate to that, right? Like, you know, knowing what the kids from a certain part of the country do, how they dress, how they speak, right? The things that they, you know, they're symbols of wealth, they're symbols of privilege.
Yeah.
That it sounds like you really captured, and it brought back my memories too, because, you know, we have that in Trinidad as well. You have the prestige schools, you have the, you know, and there's a code in every culture that kind of speaks to class. So I think that's like one of the really important themes. And when I first went to Jamaica, you know, so for the audience, I was telling Bex off camera that my sister studied in Jamaica. And so as a teenager, I would go up to visit her in university. And one of the things that stood out as a Trinidadian going to Jamaica for the first time was, you know, you were told about the class divide in Jamaica and how wide it is. And, you know, one of the contrasts is that the middle class is so much smaller than what we would experience in Trinidad, for example. So there's a much starker difference, you know, and you go up into the rich areas and right down the hill is a shanty town, so to speak. So it's very stark. And I wanted to ask you about that, because you take it from the perspective of the privileged, right? She clearly was belonging to a political class. And, you know, there was a bit of an awakening. So talk about the reality of that and contextualize that for people who aren't familiar with Jamaica and what you wanted to bring out in the film in that way.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, exactly like what you're saying, you know, the class divide is like, you know, extremely apparent in Jamaica and a lot of other Caribbean islands too, you know, like kind of are operating, you know, within the same framework of like post-colonial, you know, blah, blah, you know. So I think it's kind of like coming from that, like, I think the class divide in Jamaica is a really huge problem that you know, people, we would like to pretend it's not really happening, but like, as you say, like the middle class is very small, the divide, like the gaps widen every day, you know what I mean? So I definitely thought like taking it from her perspective was like the only in that I knew. I knew that I couldn't really take it from a different perspective because like I'm just not from a community, and I would never want to sort of like impose what I think they are thinking. But I would rather just take it from like a space where I'm like, actually, I know what these people think. Like I've heard them say what they think about this. And so, you know what I mean? Just, I think it's looking at an issue and saying like, what's my end point? Like, how can I really, like, what experience do I really know? Like, I really know, you know, sort of like an angsty teenager and like what her outlook on life would be, you know what I mean? So it's like, I take it from that point of view, and we're just like, you know, it's a very first person film. You know, everything is from her eyes basically. So yeah, I just was like, this is the end point. This is the point that feels genuine. You know, I know I can write this and it would be like accurate. I know the symbols. So it definitely was like, if I'm going to speak about this, like I'm going to do it properly. You know, I'm going to do it from a place where I know that I have like real research and stuff behind it. Because, you know, it's a delicate situation. Like, you know, I'm really putting a critique on Jamaica, the society I literally live in every single day. So, you know what I mean? And there's so many perspectives. I wouldn't want to ever try say, oh, these are all the perspectives. It's like, no, these are very specific, you know what I mean, points in the society. But there's so much more. Yeah.
And one of the things that stood out was when the guy, what was the quote? He said, like, the rich seem to multiply.
Yeah.
And it came back to her again later on. Is that kind of a saying there, or is that a line that you wrote just to capture the, you know?
I mean, that's a line I wrote, definitely. Maybe people say it. Maybe people say it. Well, maybe, I don't know.
Okay.
But yeah. I was just trying to kind of like capture just the stark difference. You know, in short films, you have to really get there very quickly. So, you know what I mean? I felt like that sentence was like weighted enough to mean several different things to whoever is watching, but would kind of come around to the same point in the end.
And one of the things that I think was a big part of the story was the music. I thought I'll hear a little more like hard dancehall in that you know section. But
yeah,
it was cool because it was the mood, you know, that you created. Like you really drew a lot of contrast with the music and between the music and the visuals, right? And especially kind of like bringing in the theme of religion, right? And a hymn was the kind of crescendo soundtrack at the very end. So, you know, tell us about that, the contrast that you were drawing, and talk about your selection of music in the film to set tone.
So I think like when it came to music, I was like, I really want to involve Jamaican artists, like new and upcoming artists. You know, some of my friends, I have projects on it, 𝗕𝗘𝗧𝗦 is on it, 𝗕𝗘𝗧𝗦 is on it. So, you know what I mean? Like, I really was like, I want to actually put in music that like these kids would actually be listening to, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, so definitely in sort of like the party scenes, it was just kind of getting like, what would they actually be listening to? And then working with Jeremy Ashbourne, who did the like the musical arrangements, we made it kind of weird so that it would really reflect her mood, but still kind of keeping with like, but there's still party music like at the end of the day and like in the background constantly. But yeah, music was extremely important. I remember like working with Jeremy, and it was like, okay, we have to tell the story again, but in music. Like every sort of emotional beat that we were getting with the visuals and with the dialogue had to also be reflected in the music, because the music is really what sets the tone of her like inner monologue and her inner thoughts, because that's really what sets us. Like with the Asha and Jacob scene, I feel like if the music was romantic, we would be forced to read it as romantic, but it's not a romantic scene. You know what I mean? It's very weird, it's very invasive. And I feel like the music really does a good job of, you know, making sure people understand like this is a weird interaction. Like in no way is this a good thing, you know? So it's like moments like that where the music is extremely critical, just to make sure people kind of understand like what our perspective is on this moment.
Well, it keeps our perspective on her emotions, you know, regardless of whatever else is happening. It kind of maintains that eye of, you know, her lens, what she's experiencing and thinking at the time. So that was really, really effective. Okay, well, I'll come back to you next for some questions for both of you, but let's switch a little bit to Clish, Seaside Stables from Barbados. So Clish, what inspired you to make this documentary about horse racing in Barbados? You touched on it a little bit in the intro, but what made this personal for you to explore and to tell the story? Oh, you're on mute. Unmute.
So sorry. Apologies. I just answered the question. Seaside Stables actually came, the actual concept came out of the Barbados Independent Film Festival. Is the island's biggest film festival. It happens in January. So during the 2016 film festival, most of the international guests that had come in and the other filmmakers that come in for the festival were staying at this hotel called the Radisson Hotel. And the Radisson Hotel is actually the beach where the hotel is based by the beach where the horses actually go swimming. And the director of the film festival would get these raving comments daily about, they woke up on mornings and they looked out of their room. They saw these guys swimming with the horses, and they kept asking, what was the story behind it? What was the motivation to take the horses to the beach, because they've never seen it before. So out of that, during that festival, I would have won Best Short Film for another film I did called H2O. And they developed a collaboration grant where they took a local filmmaker and an international filmmaker, and we came together. And we were sponsored by the film festival and the Barbados Tourism Management Inc., the BTMI, kind of like tourist board on island. And they decided to tell this story. And I actually got the pleasure to work with another filmmaker out of LA called Noah Lang. His dad is famous, Stephen Lang. He played in Avatar. The bad guy, the general. And everybody can remember the general in Avatar, that's his dad. So his son is a filmmaker, and he screened a film on island around the same time. So we hooked up. We had lots of back and forth, lots of meetings online, and we were commissioned to make this film. And so I was the person on the ground, along with the persons from the Barbados Film Festival, called BIF for short. So myself and the BIF members, we started out to make the film happen, and then we planned what we're going to do and sort of wrote, some guidelines. But the thing about these kind of films in documentary, you never know what you're really going to get or what you're going to unearth. So I knew about horse racing. Horse racing is massive in Barbados. We have, for the international audience, you can Google the Sandy Lane Gold Cup. It's the biggest horse race in the Eastern Caribbean. Sometimes you get like 30,000 people in person at the Garrison Savannah track. This big meet. It also has local and international horses. It runs for 9 furlongs. But during the time we had to shoot, it wasn't Gold Cup season, but we still set out to try to capture this story. And so out of that, Noah actually came in with his crew. So for me, it was really pleasurable because I actually got to work with an international DP, guy called Mason. Can't remember him. Mason Cash is his name. So Mason Cash was my DP, Noah Lang. He was more the production facilitator. I was director. So international crew came in, and we had a week basically to shoot the film. And we were at the track most days because the horses practice anytime from about 4 o'clock. They come down, the owners bring them down in the trailers. As you see in the films, day starts early. So we try to capture what it is with the life of a horse, groomer, a trainer, everybody that is immersed in the culture of horse racing, and then still try to link it back with why they actually take the horses to the sea. So just touch a little bit on that. So where the garrison is and the beach, there's a line in the film where it says, no place in Barbados is really far from the beach, but it's really close. Okay. So they actually walk the horses. So there are some horses that are based at the paddock at the garrison, and the grooms walk them down and they take them swimming. And well, it's like therapeutic.
Yeah. Like, definitely. And the sea, the sea is really a character there, which is one of the questions I'll ask you later. But let me jump in for a second, because pulling back to something you mentioned earlier, horse racing isn't something that foreign audience will typically associate with the Caribbean. In Trinidad is not a huge culture, right? There are racetracks. Growing up in Trinidad, I've never seen a horse swim. Actually, the first time I saw a horse swim was in Jamaica at a resort for a wedding, and I was just so blown away by it. So it's not something that we typically would associate with the Caribbean. So what was the meaning foreign audiences would? So it's interesting that you say that how this came about was through foreigners kind of marveling at this thing. So what was the reception of the film outside of Barbados? What was the international reaction like?
Seahorses. That was just the rolling theme. Seahorses. There are horses that are swimming. And we were able to capture a little bit of the history, the historic side of it. And we were also aiming to show how persons are immersed in this horse racing culture. So as an individual, I would watch it was the 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 Gold Cup, and now it's the Sandy Lane Gold Cup. I would watch horse racing maybe once a year on television, or go to the garrison on that one race day. But persons that live around the garrison and other persons that live close to the track, they live, eat, sleep, drink racing.
Okay.
As you can see, there were shots where their little children, they know the horses by heart. They all have their favorite horses. Everyone has this theme where you see them physically riding the horses, or they're whipping their fingers. And a lot of kids actually also have aspirations to become jockeys. And a lot of the jockeys started out as young race fans going to the garrison or the grooms, and they just fell in love with horses and their passion. So there's a really passionate community within horse racing, and it just comes together. And it looks past class sometimes, because it also gives the opportunity for persons to be around a horse. A horse is a very, very, very expensive pet or animal, and these horses cost hundreds of thousands of US dollars, or maybe in the millions for some stables. So to actually have the opportunity to be around a horse, to ride a horse, the passion is really, really deep.
Okay, that's awesome. And one of the things I love is that the sea is a character in this film. When you grow up in the Caribbean or any tropical or coastal environment, the sea, the beach is such a big part of your life. It's like a person. And I think I saw that even more so during COVID, because, I don't know how it was in Jamaica and Barbados, but in Trinidad, the beaches were closed for, quite a long time.
Same here. It was closed from 6. They were only open. They were closed at first, and then they opened them from 6 till 9.
Right. Yeah, right. So there was like a period that they slowly kind of reopened the beaches. But what you would hear, and especially among the older population, was how much they longed for the sea and how much they missed the sea. And so what you brought into this was the sea as a character, right? And the sea as, this therapeutic part of not just the way that the jockeys take care of the horses and love the horses, but also a way that it just kind of made it a unique bonding experience between the jockey and the horse, right? So tell us about that, and then the visual aspect of that, shooting that, shooting horses that are moving all the time, you talk about your cinematographer, so congrats to him. I don't know if he's on, but, tell us about that process as well.
It really started as a blank canvas because as you rightly said, a horse is a massive being. And I asked one of the jockeys during the process, what does it feel like riding a horse? And his response was, drive on the highway, drive about 80 kilometers and stick your head out the car window. That's what it feels like for me when I'm really, they call it boogieing, when they're really
going. Right.
It was a case of I had to forget everything that I've learned about all, like any perception I had with horse racing, and just immerse myself. So when the crew came in, I would have spent a good few weeks just being around, seeing what a race day looks like, seeing what happens on mornings, because they were only here for a week. So every day was a shooting day. And these are certain things, and there were certain restrictions. So you couldn't get close, you had to use some lenses, shoot from far. Then, some horses were more receptive than others. Some horses will let you come close, you can get to pet them, and then there were some that, the guys will go like, so then you had to work along with the grooms. The groom is really, the jockeys race the horse, but the groom is the person that lives with the horse. Like, they bathe them, they know every single thing. They can tell you when the horse has a cold. And so I would have spent a lot of time with them trying to see what could I capture, or what would I be allowed to capture, what spooks a horse, what wouldn't spook a horse, what color clothing do we wear, or is there any, would a red shirt make them freak out, so these are a lot of the questions, like your pre-production questions I would have been asking on that process. But in terms of the actual cinematography, so you're on the fly, you just shoot, you just try to capture moments, Maybe Mason would tell you I was that person, like, shoot this, shoot that, yo, let's try this, let's try that, let's try this. Get that kid, he's pointing,
Yeah. Okay.
And then there was certain things that you set out to shoot, like the start of a race, the horses actually passing, people's reaction, crowd shots, the standard stuff that you would try in storytelling. But I also wanted to make it authentic.
Yeah.
And try to capture, so that when the local audience watches it also too, it comes across as, this is our culture. This is what horse racing looks like for us. This is what it feels like. And visually tell that story to the world.
It definitely did feel that way. I think it did. It felt like you guys became part of the community, right? And that kind of made it like super authentic. So let me pivot here, just to kind of cue the audience to ask their questions. Submit it in the chat, in the YouTube chat, and we'll be taking those in a little bit. But in the meantime, let me ask you both a couple of things. The first is, this is, for some people, we have people that tune in from all around the world for Short Film Saturdays. And for some people, it's their first introduction to Caribbean film. So tell us who your favorite filmmakers are from the Caribbean, who have inspired you, who has mentored you, or both, if it applies, and how has it influenced your work? Let's start with Bex.
Okay, cool. That's a really great question. I think definitely, Storm Salter was a producer on this. So yes, so, I really got to know him as a filmmaker, and we do have a lot of the same artistic instincts. So it was really great to work with him. So he was someone I definitely looked up to all through high school, because I just knew about his work and stuff like that. So being able to work with him on this was amazing, and I just felt you know, like I was, you know, being guided, as well as like, you know, making my first film basically. Yeah.
Oh, Storm is one of the coolest guys. We interviewed Storm for season 2 of Soleo Spotlight. So last year, I don't know if you saw that, but we did an
yeah, I think so. I think so.
Yeah, then that was my first time having like a full long in-depth conversation, but had seen him around, and you know, he's like layers that you peel back. You're like, oh my gosh, like, you know, you just keep learning
yes.
about him.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true.
Yeah. Oh, that's really awesome. I'm glad to hear that. That's a good one. That's a good one. And a living one. You know,
yes,
that people could follow.
Modern.
Exactly.
Yeah.
His work. So yes, guys, definitely check out Storm's work. He has films on Netflix, and you know, he's really kind of blazing a trail himself, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely.
Yeah, cool. And what about you, Clish?
I have so many. You're gonna put me on the spot. Let's go island to island. Trinidad. I got to spend quite a bit of time with Michael. He did Green Day. I'm not gonna try to pronounce his last name right now. He did. I always mess it up. So Michael. He did Green Days by the River, the adaptation of the novel. So I just spent a screen date here and spent some time with him. So we had good vibes. The first real Caribbean film that really touched my soul was 𝗖𝗟𝗜𝗦𝗏 by 𝗖𝗟𝗓𝗦. I did that in film school, Caribbean, a class called Caribbean Cinema. And when I watched that film,
you did a class called Caribbean Cinema. Where did you go to film school?
Barbados, our Barbados Center for Creative Imagination. Cool. Yeah, so I did the film program there.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was like my real first immersed in like a real Caribbean, and it's not in English, and I lived every single moment of it. The texture, the authenticity, it was just like I was living in the 17th century on a plantation. The grandmother, the main character, the grandmother in the film was everybody in the Caribbean's grandmother. Yeah, so that's in terms of feature. I recently would have had some good vibes. Trinidad Film Festival 2019. Michael from Dominica, the guys from Dominica, they did a documentary. Good gosh, I have a brain clear now. Uncivilized. Uncivilized. Yes. Great documentary based on the.
Is that the one where they were in the forest and?
Yes, Michael was in the forest, so
the storm came and.
Yep.
Yes. I saw that one. That was really good, and a very like environmental film as well. Environmental theme film as well. Yeah. Oh, those are some good choices, guys. Those are
Jamaica now. Flight. I was there for Gap Fest. I had the privilege of opening Gap Fest in 2019 again. Yeah, that was 2018, 2019. Yeah, 2019 before the madness happened. But yeah, so I got to meet the team from Flight, which went on to be an HBO short. That was amazing. I got to have long conversations with the cinematographer Daniel. Oh good gosh, messing up the name.
You need to write down your last names.
Yeah, because he put me on the spot, you know. But yeah, Flight, the writer, the director, same person, but the cinematographer. I actually follow her on Instagram, and she recently did a documentary on Clarks. Let's see, I'll just pull it up. Clarks.
Oh, Gabrielle Blackwood? Are you talking about Gabrielle?
Yes, Gabrielle. Yes.
Is that Gabrielle Blackwood?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, Gabrielle, we had some talks with Gabrielle. We've been
so
Gabrielle for a while actually. Yeah, she's great. She's
awesome. So there's Gabrielle. In St. Vincent, there's my fellow classmate, 𝗥𝗘𝗘𝗘𝗦. He's doing some real interesting stuff on the indigenous nature of the Garifuna people. There's some guys in Martinique, some young French Caribbean filmmakers in Martinique. I met them at Trinidad Film Festival again, and they're still making shorts and doing some wonderful stuff. So I'm a real Caribbean man. and I still keep in contact with everybody. Still try to share vibes and keep it alive.
Cool.
But yeah, everybody's work inspires me. I pull from lots of culture, and I just try to immerse myself in it and just try to tell these stories visually as we need to.
Yeah, awesome,
you know,
awesome. That
from
was
our perspective.
a nice laundry list that you put together. I think
And you put me on the
guys have a
spot, you
lot
know what I
of,
mean? Imagine if I prepared.
no, exactly. No, that was really good. So we're getting some audience questions. So I want to make sure we leave room for that and, you know, honor the time as well. So all right, question for Rebecca. We have a few questions for you, Rebecca. Hold on, let me pick one. Was the contrast of the warm colors in the beginning to symbolize happier moments versus stark contrast of the moment when the character bubble popped to show the realities of classism?
That's a really good question. I mean, I feel like definitely I was really pushing color in this. I think because it was actually my final thesis for my B.F.A. So I was like, you know what I mean? I'm putting all the stops, I'm using all the colors that I want. But also, yeah, that definitely, like, I was playing with like warm and cold colors. Like when we're in Asha's room, it's a very weird green. You know what I mean? It's almost like a sickly green. And then we go into her friend's room and it's like a wash of pink and this sort of like air of femininity. So it's like really, I was trying to tell stories with the colors as well. So yeah, definitely all the color is very intentional. Yeah, color is a big thing for me,
Nice, yeah. And it's a big thing for us as Caribbean people, like color is, you know, everything.
Yeah, exactly. That's so true.
Yeah, you can't authentically represent us without a certain, like, you know, very rich color palettes and hues and all of that. And
yeah,
I think
also just like vibrancy.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, just like vibrancy. Yeah.
I love how you lit the scenes, and I think the skin tones looked really, really good in the shots. Like really good job there. At night, in the day, like really, really good.
Thank you.
So we have yeah, definitely. We have another audience question here. This one is for Clish. Why do you think sport of horse racing is something that brings people together in the South? This person is from America, I think. There's a horse derby that's similar to everyone dressing up and watching horse racing. So does that kind of do the same in Barbados? I'm guessing is the question.
Yes, there are actually levels, but in a short, you can't show all of them, but there are actual levels to horse racing viewership. So there's the grandstand where you find the ladies dressed up in the bonnets and the men in the suits. Then you have the other side of the grandstand where you might have the guys in the short slacks and the button-up shirts. And then on the grounds, you get the real authentic people that you know, they know the jockey, they know they want to, many horses like going down to go in the gate, you know. You can hear the kids saying, number eight, that's my horse, you know. And then you have the hardcore gambling crowd that, you know, like, you know, they bet, they are hardcore bettors. They're that people that, you know, they study, they're up late at night studying the race, what they call it, the race program, you know. Right. So there's so many different elements in the culture. And you see it when your horse wins. Sometimes when you would see the owner come down and he's there with his wife, or, you know, they're actually female owners as well. And they're walking with the horse in the parade ring. And then you see the people from the community where the horse comes from, or the fan club, and they rush and, you know, everybody's like patting the horse and they're like, you know, like almost like we all won, you know, it's my horse, horse, we all won. So it's like it's a huge like melting pot of culture. It's so diverse and it just all comes together. And you mainly see it when your horse wins.
No, that's cool. And I think what you do there is also, you're a really good storyteller, Clish, into like just verbal, you know, like I just saw the whole picture. Yeah, the whole picture was painted. But I think what you brought together there is kind of like the classes coming together there in a very interesting way. So that's cool. So there's a question definitely that I think is on everybody's mind. As we've watched your films, and I think you guys definitely earned some fans today, right? Based on the reactions in the comments. What's next for the two of you? What project should you be looking out for? So let's go, should we be looking out for from you? So let's go with Clish versus time. I won't pick on Bex versus time.
No problem. I'm actually working on a project called The Ocean and Culture, where I look at identity and what that closeness, that lived experience that we have, and that close connection with the ocean and Barbadians, like who we are. Does the ocean make up who we are? And look at it through the lens of the anthropologist, you know, just sitting back, not judging, let's just look at the world through the lens of the people that live within the nearshore environment and just examine the culture of the ocean space.
Gosh, can you do that in like, you know, more islands, not just Barbados?
I would love to once I have a budget. I'm always willing to jump on a plane with a camera and you know, tell these stories.
I think that would be so cool if you made it a, you know, pan-Caribbean kind of anthology almost.
I'm always about that stuff. But yeah, that's what I'm working on right now.
You could put me in the special. Thanks for that idea.
No problem.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, so it's just.
So where are you with that project? At what stage are you guys?
So that project actually came out of my MPhil research. I was doing a program in natural resources management in environmental science, and it was actually my thesis.
Okay.
And so I was working on that for, call it 3-4 years.
Okay.
So while I was out doing field research, I would take the camera with me. So I would have been on boats in the middle of the ocean, lining with fisher folk, lining with the surfers, just capturing all of these stories. And now it's just a task of taking the research and turning it from an academic exercise now into a storytelling exercise.
Right. Got it.
You know, can be palatable for all audiences. So that's where I'm at now. So I have maybe 4 years of footage on hard drives.
Wow.
And it's just now to stitch it all together.
Yeah, which with documentary, that's where the film is made. You know, I always see a lot of people say this, you know, it's in the edit room is where you make your film for docs. And what about you, Bex? What's next for you?
Well, I'm actually writing a political satire. I mean, it's really the research I kind of have to do is like a bit surreal because I've always said Jamaican politics, and I'm sure like a lot of Caribbean politics feels like surrealist comedy sometimes, like almost like I couldn't write the news if I tried, you know what I mean? Like it's the material is already there. So I'm really looking into sort of like doing like a mini series on politics in Jamaica and sort of how comedic, ridiculous, surrealist like it can be, but such a huge topic, you know what I mean? But I really do want to focus on a more modern approach because, you know, as you know, also like what Clish is saying, like it's academic things, like trying to make it into films, because right now at Oxford I'm looking at sort of the post-colonial time in Jamaica, more of like looking at, you know, the 70s and the 80s and sort of like that extremely violent time in Jamaican history. So I'm just like kind of looking at it, you know, from different perspectives, where it's like we had this really horrible past, like these sort of like defining decades in Jamaican politics. And now we have modern politics, but it's the same problems, just in a different shell, you know what I mean? And also I wanted it to be a bit, a bit more light. That saying, I keep having this thing, like, if we don't laugh, we'll cry. Like, I keep thinking, like, why am I writing this? But it's like, I think if we approached it like with, comedy, maybe we could understand it, or just like sit back and say, really, what is this? I think when you hold up a mirror to people, it can be very revealing, yeah.
Have you ever watched our cartoon president?
No.
Watch that? Okay, that's a Showtime. I think it was Showtime. That's a Showtime series that one of the comedians, I'm trying to remember which one of the late night show comedians in the US, he did, it's a parody of the Trump administration, and they did it as a cartoon.
Oh, okay.
Check that out. It's
Okay,
really
yes.
to give you some good inspiration. It's hilarious too, is it?
It sounds hilarious.
Yeah, and I think like when you say that, it's like when you even take that into the Caribbean, it's even more colorful, it's even more characters.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's even more sad because of our status and our economics. It like the implications is just so much more potent, because it's a small country.
Yeah,
everybody that's affected, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
That's really cool, Bex. That's really cool. Oh my gosh, you guys are working on some great stuff. This is awesome. So, okay, so that based on that, I think people will want to continue to follow you guys and your work. So tell us where the audience could find you. Website, social, anything of that nature. Bex, you want to tell people where to find you?
Okay, of course. I love an Instagram plug, the opportunity. You guys can follow me on Instagram. I'm at the BecX, BECX. And sort of anything I do with, I'll probably post there first. My website's in my bio. Yeah.
Good. What about you, Clish?
Anybody can hit me up at 𝗖𝗟𝗔𝗦𝗏 on Instagram.
Okay, awesome.
Or you can look for me on Film Freeway, Clish Gittens.
Okay, sounds good. Well, guys, thank you so much. This was awesome.
Thank you.
You definitely have a new fan in me, and I think in many people that were watching today. And, keep us posted on how you're doing. We'd love to have you back. And hope you enjoyed Short Film Saturday. Thank you to the audience for the great conversation. Sorry, I couldn't take all of the questions, but we had such a rich dialogue. So we didn't take as many audience questions today, but they kept coming, and you guys did a really great job at answering those. So next Short Film Saturday is back in the MENA and West Africa regions. We have Egyptian filmmaker Nada Riyadh and Nigerian-American filmmaker Emmanuel Ofolabi. So we'll be showing those two films, really great films. So you don't want to miss that. And for those of you who haven't yet liked and subscribed to Soleil Space, you can like this video. The Q&A will be out within the next week for you to share. Also subscribe to this channel, and you can follow us on Instagram as well, on YouTube, all the socials. The information is in the bio on this page. So thanks so much, everybody. Enjoy your Saturday. Hope we made your Saturday more happy with these great films. See you all next week.
Bye-bye.